I'm Peta Akawi, and welcome to Life School, the podcast. Each episode, I'll be chatting openly and honestly with a different guest about a whole host of purposeful topics. From personal success and failure stories, to relationship advice, tips and tricks for entrepreneurs, to professional and practical guidance on living a more fulfilled and happy life. I'll be speaking to men and women from all walks of life, all with unique experiences they want to share in the hope of inspiring you. I hope throughout this series you can take away some valuable nuggets of wisdom to help you navigate through life's many twists, turns, and lessons. Here at Life School, we are all about the business of learning. So let's get on with the show. And remember, everything you go through grows you. On today's episode of Life School, I'm thrilled to welcome to the podcast a multifaceted entrepreneur who is not only a successful businesswoman, but also a passionate mental health advocate who is determined to get people talking. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but Miss Helen Hope is one of the most genuine and loveliest ladies I've had the pleasure to meet here in Dubai, and I absolutely loved getting to know her more during this episode. I really hope you enjoy this honest and frank conversation as much as I did. You can find more information on Helen and her businesses in the show notes. Happy listening. Today I'm welcoming to Life School the founder of fashion label HeartKnoxx, the pioneer behind the hashtag mental health is trending, and the founder of Safe Space, Helen Hope. Welcome to Life School, Helen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with me today and giving me your time. Okay, so let's just jump straight in. Helen, can you start by telling us a bit about your story and how you came to launch your clothing brand HeartKnoxx?
Yeah, so I launched just over a year ago now. It's hard to believe that time's passed that quickly, but I had been living in Dubai for quite a few years working in the fashion industry, and I had multiple jobs as fashion buyer and design and things like that, but I got made redundant in the space of 6 months between two jobs, so it was pretty tough, kind of having that knock twice. Financial uncertainty and all that sort of stress of trying to find a new job started to sort of take its toll on my health, so I took 6 months off to go back home to sort of try and figure out what the next step was. And during that time it started out as a blog. It was kind of like me just writing down my feelings and trying to process how I'd got into this place, and then it quickly became a lot more than that. I was like, how can I monetize this? So I started designing t-shirts, and it sort of took me back to my creative roots, which I think I realised, because I'd moved so far away from that in terms of my career, was maybe where I was feeling sort of like I wasn't, in the right position or whatever. So I started designing t-shirts, and then I started thinking about how I could incorporate the mental health sort of aspect of it, because when I'd been poorly, I'd started feeling these physical symptoms where I was getting this shaky feeling in my head all the time. I couldn't concentrate. It felt like I was looking at you now, and it felt like the wall was kind of crawling behind you, and it got so bad that I couldn't leave the house. So I ended up just becoming horizontal all the time to stop these physical symptoms. So it was really the catalyst for I suppose me obviously going home and sort of helping me come up with this business idea. So I decided to share my story on social media, because I'd always been that girl that was Instagramming breakfast, lunch and dinner. I Instagrammed everything. It got to the point where when I took myself off social media, it was well, I've got my phone in my hand, I'm staring at this amazing kind of beach or, sunset or whatever. I need to take a picture of it, but what am I going to do with that picture, because I'm not putting it on social media? So I had 6 months off basically posting anything on Instagram, and people started sending me messages saying are you okay? Are you still alive? What's going on? And so I felt like I kind of had to come back in in a honest sort of way and let people know what I was kind of going through. So I changed my social media name to The Comeback Kid, and sort of put this post out there explaining what I've been going through, with the hope that maybe some other people might kind of resonate with what I've been going through, and also to just sort of put a bit of probably closure on kind of what I'd been going through, because when people don't know and you've kept something so under wraps, this secret starts to eat away at you, doesn't it? So came out with like kind of what I'd been going through, and it kind of spiraled from there really. Then I came up with the idea of creating Mental Health is Trending, which is like this warrior wall where people can share their stories of strength on this wall, but also purchase the t-shirts that the campaign's called the I'm Fine campaign. So you know, the t-shirts have obviously got that message on it, and it's like the vehicle for talking about mental health and trying to create a bit of awareness for it. So that sort of skyrocketed and like took on a life of its own. And then the HeartKnoxx collection is still evolving now, like the more kind of fashion lines on that. So that's sort of what I'm kind of focusing on now. But yeah, it was kind of like a bit of an organic journey really, like through kind of what my own personal experiences leading me onto this business idea. And yeah.
And did you find, once you decided to set up the business, did you find that helped you with what you were going through? Was it quite like cathartic?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I think talking is definitely part of the healing process, and having so many people come forward and, you know, share their own stories and kind of empathise with what I was going through because they'd been through it before. And I think the hardest part at the time when I was struggling was, and the reason why I took myself away from social media was because I felt like I needed to put on this kind of front of like this lifestyle that I should be living that I wasn't, you know. So yeah, it did help, and reading other people's stories and hearing what they'd kind of been through really, really helped as well. So I think that's kind of like what it's become now. It's like, you know, sharing these stories of strength to sort of help other people. Yeah.
And what do you think during that time when you were having all the physical symptoms and you felt really low, was there a turning point where you felt like, okay, no, now I'm feeling better? Was there one thing that you can kind of pinpoint that really helped you, or was it you know, a sort of a culmination of various different things over time?
It was definitely I mean, to say, I think I struggle with the like when people say like that kind of like when you've shared your story, it doesn't mean automatically that everything becomes better again. All it means is that it's easier for you to deal with that problem because other people can understand what you're going through. So, you know, I still have my good days and my bad days, and like I went through a good like 9-month period where I was on medication. You know, that was the choice I made for myself, like after I went back to the UK. And that really did help me. But I then started to feel, you know, medication's not always the best answer for everybody. It works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. And I started to kind of have guilty feelings about the fact that like I was sort of masking this problem, like, because being on medication also masks other emotions too. So I kind of wanted to start feeling those other emotions again. So it's definitely been a journey for me, because it's not, you know, now like someone's waved a magic wand and now I've got this other focus that my problems are all fixed. I still have these like really low days, and I have really high days as well. So I'd probably say, you know, it's been a combination of a few things that have kind of helped me kind of along in this journey. But am I at the end of it? No. You know, I think that like that's what I want to try and be authentic about in terms of talking about mental health, because, you know, it's not just a case of now I've like got this great business and, you know, everything's fixed. It's by no means that, but we're all on our own paths. So
you mentioned the Mental Health is Trending campaign. Can you tell us a bit more about your hashtag Mental Health is Trending movement and how people can support with this? Yeah, so the whole idea around, I mean, when it first started, I actually got a little bit of stick for the name, believe it or not, because I think like some people kind of misinterpreted it. You know, there's obviously different nationalities, people interpret things differently. But the whole idea is I'm not trying to have mental illness trend, but I want mental health awareness to trend, because when something trends, it's not making it trendy. It's two different words. Trending and trendy mean two different things. Trending is basically saying that you want people to start talking about it. And so that was the whole like idea around that account. How people can get involved is that they can share their own stories on their pages, tag in the page, tag the hashtag or tag the actual picture with the page name, and we'll happily reshare it for them. So it's really that simple, like, and it's that easy. Or people can purchase a t-shirt. A proportion of the funds go towards the Mental Health Foundation. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I was quite amazed and inspired by some of the posts I saw on your Instagram, just how honest people are.
There's some really memorable ones, like...
Yeah. Do you have actually a favourite or one that really sticks in your mind?
Yeah, it's funny actually, like at the beginning, the very early days when I first set the page up, there was a girl, I can't for the life of me think of her name, but she's got bright red hair, so if you ever want to scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see. And she'd done a YouTube video with somebody in I think it was a podcast as well, and I just thought that she was like just really strong, like she girl from Ireland, and just hearing her story, like a lot of it kind of like linked in with kind of what I'd been feeling and what I'd been going through. But I think she removed herself off social media or changed her handle or something, because I can't go back and message her now. But you definitely get people who, there's a guy called Ben West who lost his brother to suicide roughly around the same time as when I was kind of going through what I was going through, and we spoke a lot over the phone about him sort of kind of getting involved with what I was doing, and he's gone on to do amazing things. Like he's does something called Walk to Talk, I think it's called, and he's raised loads of money for charity, and he's set up his own charity and stuff. So it is great to see like other people doing so much for awareness. Like it's almost like become like competitive now, like who can create or raise the most awareness for something that, you know, people weren't really talking about, you know, like they were talking about, but it really does feel like there's been like reverberations like in the last year, especially in the UK. So it's great.
Yeah, I think so much can just come from a conversation.
Yeah.
And just knowing that someone else has been through something similar to you.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel like, okay, I'm not the only one that's feeling like this. That doesn't make me strange or weird or weak or a failure. There are other people that are going through this. I think it's amazing. What does mental health mean to you?
Mental health and mental illness are two very different things. Like mental illness is the negative output of not looking after your mental health. So your mental health is like your physical health, but it's, you know, to do with your soul, you know, your being or whatever. So anything that makes you feel good is what you should be continuing to do to look after your mental health. So that could be, you know, there's no kind of like bucket, you know, like people say, oh, you should go to the gym or you should do this to help you, and yes, all those different things like kind of can have a positive effect on your mental health, but they could also have a negative effect on your mental health if, say, for example, you've got an eating disorder. So like there's no kind of one, you know, rule fits all or whatever. Mental health is very personal to you. It's who you are as a person, and just looking after yourself, you know, looking after your mental well-being and your thoughts. And yeah.
It's that sort of I like that you use the word soul, because I often, for example, like going horse riding, I'll say to my girlfriend, I feel like it's feeding my soul. Like afterwards I just feel great.
Yeah.
And yeah, you need to do those things that you feel are really good for your soul as much as you can.
It sounds like a really cliche thing to say, but obviously because I've worked in the fashion industry for so long, like fashion was always like a really big thing for me. Like I always wanted to kind of like have the newest, like trendiest dress or whatever, and like I used to feel guilty about that, because it's like this whole attaching things to, you know, it's like superficial, isn't it? It can be a superficial kind of way of looking at it. But now what I've realised is actually it was the process of kind of like going shopping for me, you know, because it was part of my job, but also kind of like that getting up, getting ready for, you know, a shopping trip. I'd spend a full day with my friends, you know, like, and I really realised like, you know, it was the whole kind of experience that made me feel good. It was the going for lunch, it was the spending time with my girlfriends. And like now, because like you know, financially, like things are slightly different for me now, that I can't do that as often as I like. So when I do something like that, you know, where if I just buy like a piece of makeup or something, the buzz like that, even if I buy a takeaway, you know, the buzz of that, like parting with my cash, you know, like really gives me that high, you know, that you might get from horse riding.
I get it from shopping.
Yeah.
What's your advice or message for anyone currently suffering with anxiety?
Again, like I think going back to your last question, you know, mental health is so personal to each person, but I'd say if there's one piece of advice that helped me, that I think could help some other people, is just talking to other people about it, because I think like a lot of people's anxieties are things that they don't share with other people naturally. and that's why they feel anxious, because they think that maybe people think something else about them, or, you know, a certain situation, or I don't know. But I think once you open up to somebody and say, you know, if you say to somebody like, I feel anxious, like the first thing they're going to want to do is try and make you feel better about that. I don't know many people that would hear those words and go, oh, we'll just like suck it up or whatever. Like, you know, people might say that, but the likelihood is that they're going to say something to help you kind of through how you're feeling. So probably just to open up. In terms of like breathing things and things like I've learned some great like techniques over the years, like that you can do in terms of your breathing and holding your breath in and pausing and thinking of the breath that you're about to next take and stuff to distract you from the things that are stressing you out. But again, like those things might work for some people. I know people that tap their foreheads and all different weird and wonderful things. So I'd probably say, yeah, opening up is probably the...
And what would you say for someone, because I think we all suffer with anxiety at some point in our lives, but what would you say to someone who is at the point where it really is crippling and they don't know what to do? When do you feel like it's the right time to maybe see a doctor or see someone professional? Like, obviously it's so personal to the individual, but when would you say, okay, if this is really, you really feel like you can't just live a sort of normal day-to-day life, when would you say is the right time to seek that help?
I think if you say it's not your mental health, say it's something completely different, right? You know, most girls, like if they get a pimple on their face or a rash or something like that, straight away they're like, I've got to go to the doctors and like get this checked out because it's affecting my physical appearance. Or, you know, if you've got a cut on your leg that's gone septic or something like that, you know, like it's feeling really painful. And I think the thing with people's mental illness, people think I've got to keep coping with this, you know, like I don't, you know, like why would I go to the doctors about this, or why would I go to see a therapist about it? But I think if you're feeling in pain, you know, like in whatever respect it was, like for me it was like I couldn't get out of bed because the minute I did, felt like I was going to fall over, because your brain controls everything, you know, it controls me kind of like touching my hair right now without me even thinking about it. So you've got to kind of be like honest with yourself and say, you know, like how else it might be affecting the rest of your life as well. And I think like there's nothing to be ashamed of for going to a doctor. I mean, I've been to therapists over the years, numerous different times in my life for different, you know, different issues. And I think the minute you kind of like talk to somebody about it, you will start to feel better. But it's definitely like ripping a plaster off. You know, you've got to just make that decision that that's what you want to feel better. And I think when you decide you want to feel better is the time to go and see somebody.
When was that time for you? When did you go, right, okay, I can't continue like this. I need to speak to someone?
I remember being sat in the bath. I was WhatsApping my mum, and I felt like I was hopeless, like completely hopeless at that point. I thought, you know, I'm never going to get a job. Like, I felt like the only way out would be, I mean, I was having suicidal thoughts at that point. You know, I really did feel like there was no point in me being here anymore. And that was built up over a period of time of me, you know, it was the physical symptoms that were making me feel so bad. It wasn't necessarily that I was depressed before. Yes, I had struggles, but it was my body telling me, you can't take on or do anymore right now because you're at your lowest. And I remember my mum messaging me and saying, she was like, you know, would you let us pay for a flight for you to come home? And I struggled to accept things from people, but my mum was like, you know, we'll pay for a flight to come home. And something just in that message just made me think, no, this is the time. Like, I need to come home, because I'd already spent thousands of dirhams out here trying to, you know, see a doctor, and they weren't giving me the answers that I needed, because I don't think they recognised it as for what it actually was. And I'm so glad that she said what she said, because I would have just carried on, you know, like feeling like crap. But it was only that, like, you know, her reaching out and saying, like, I'm going to help you. I know it's your mum, but even I struggle to kind of accept, you know, help from my mum sometimes too. So, but I think lying in the bath, I was just like, no, I can't carry on like this. Something needs to change. So I accepted it and got on the flight. And that same day, like from being at the airport, I went straight to the doctors. And you know, it was having somebody say to me, you know, it's okay. Like, there's hundreds of people that come to me that say the same thing as you. This is what you've got. You've got chronic anxiety and panic attacks. And, we know how to fix it. And it was that simple. And it was such a, I mean, I cried when she told me what was.
I was going to ask, did you immediately feel a relief? Like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
this makes
sure.
sense.
I thought I had like a terminal illness. Like, I was going to the doctors and they were doing blood tests, they did brain scans, ECGs, and no one was kind of giving me the answers to like, this could potentially be something as simple as anxiety that were making me feel as bad as I was, like physically, not just like internally.
So you didn't think what I'm going through is anxiety at the time?
No, to me, anxiety was that like little palpitation that you felt sometimes when you were a bit nervous or you were a bit stressed. Anxiety, if you'd have said to me anxiety could surface itself in the fact that your legs stop working, or the fact that the room feels like it's spinning, like you've got vertigo, I honestly did not attribute it to. I knew I was going through a stressful time, and I knew that was something that wasn't making me feel great, but I never put it down to the physical symptoms that I was having at all, because I think as naturally as Brits as well, we kind of like go, oh, I've got
stiff
a cold,
upper lip.
Yeah, stiff upper lip, I've got a cold, I'll try and power through. And at the time I'd just got some freelance work, and I was trying to get taken on as permanent, so I was really trying to power through to make sure that I got this job. I just totally ignored everything my body was saying to me, and I'd burnt out. So it sounds funny saying it, because like, if you said to somebody, you were saying before, like at what point would you say to somebody go and get help? I was just ignoring the fact that I needed to.
Yeah. And do you think for some people it almost becomes their norm? So they almost get used to just feeling low and feeling that anxious, horrible feeling.
Normal.
Like they almost get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, I was even having things like, like heartburn. I had really bad heartburn all the time. I'd eat something and I'd be like, I must be eating the wrong things, or, drinking loads of water to try and get rid of that feeling. And actually that was part of it as well. Like I had really bad skin at the time. I had like big patches of like rashes on my face. And I was just putting that down to like, it could be, I don't know what it could be. Maybe my diet's not great or whatever. I've been busy, but that all of it was, my body telling me
Yeah, I think our bodies are incredible, because your body almost tries to show you and tell you need to slow down, you need to get more rest, you need to you need to stop doing that thing that's causing you loads of stress, whether it's a rash or skin problems or bloating, or your body does tell you, but so often we just don't listen because we go, oh well, yeah, I must be eating the wrong thing, or it is vertigo because people suffer with vertigo, and your body really does try and tell you things, but so often I think we're just so busy and we're just like in the day-to-day rat race of life that we just ignore these things. And that's what's scary, because sometimes you can ignore things and then it gets to the point where they develop into something more serious.
For sure, definitely.
What's the biggest learning you found from going through your most low and challenging times?
Probably realising that how strong I am and that I can get through anything. Like, it's cliche, but when you look back at like what you've been through, at the time when you're going through it, you never think that you're going to get to the end of it, but you always do, don't you? So it's probably resilience, really. And looking back at myself like from years time now, like I do feel like a different person in a lot of ways. So yeah, probably resilience, but maybe.
Well, you need a lot of resilience if you're going to open one business, let alone 3.
Yeah, no, tell me about it.
Can you share with us some information about your latest project, Safe Space?
Yeah, so Safe Space started after mental health is trending really took off, because I started to get a bit of a conscience about what I was actually sharing on social media, and was it actually adding any value to people's lives. But obviously, because my background's not in any kind of clinical profession, I really wanted to kind of bring people together who were in that sort of arena to sort of I'd gone through months where I couldn't afford medical cover. That was what was part of what was preventing me from going to see a doctor. So I wanted to sort of come up with a solution that would help people who were struggling to pay to be able to see a doctor or, psychiatrist or whatever. So I put out a bit of a call to action to get those types of people together. We had our first committee meeting, and then that sort of evolved into, it was going to be more of a corporate social responsibility programme. So how it works is that businesses, big, large corporations get involved. They pay like a set retainer for the month. We do activations with them. So it might be like, we go in and we do a couple of talks a month. Part of that budget would be allocated to, if anybody in their team needs treatment to see somebody, then we would have a bank of people that they could go to see. So if they don't use that up like within the first month, then that money would obviously get carried over till somebody does need that support, and then that budget would get put towards a psychiatrist or a therapist or something for somebody within their team. So it's really about kind of companies taking on responsibility for their employees, because as we all know, like working out here in Dubai, your job is basically everything to your existence out here, your visa, your salary, everything. So it is a large part of like where people's stresses kind of stem from, I think, here.
Yeah, and also we spend most of our time at work, not just here, that's anywhere, but you're at work more often than not than you are at home. So if you are going through something, of course that's going to have a knock-on effect to your work.
As well, because like growing up in the UK, like HR departments are obviously a big thing, whereas out here, like it always seems like a bit of an afterthought in terms of company structure and setup. And then when you've got a HR person coming in, they've got a lot to deal with when they've coming in from day dot or whatever. So it might not be their specialty to sort of like focus on company culture or how to kind of create an environment for people to enjoy working in that's also productive as well. So it's not only focusing on productivity, but it's, the benefit of the companies is there's a return on investment, because generally people who are happier in their workplace will perform better as well. So they're not focusing on that thing that's really kind of bringing them down. The business will achieve more success. So
I mean, I've recently started to see a life coach, Maria Tanzi, who's going to be on my next episode, who I know you've started to see as well.
She's absolutely amazing.
And I'd never been to see a life coach before, or a therapist, and I knew I'd be good at it because I like talking. So I was like, I'm going to enjoy this. But I have seen her now for 6 weeks, and if everyone could see a life coach, oh my god, yeah. It would make such a difference. Even if you're not particularly going through a difficult time, I went to her with a very clear now I know it's a self-limiting belief, but I went to her with an issue or something that I had on my mind that I wanted to work on. And through the process, I've honestly thought, oh my goodness, if everyone could experience this, it would just change so many people's lives.
I've always been a big advocate of therapy from the first time I experienced therapy, and I think like it's a bit like a hairdresser, like you can have a really amazing therapist that can change your life, or you can have one that can give you a really bad haircut and give you more problems to deal with. So it's definitely like a very personal thing when you start that relationship with the therapist. But yeah, I did my first session today with Maria myself, hence why I've got these dark circles under my eyes, because I spent half of it crying. But I did come out of there feeling very different to the mindset that I was when I first went in there. And yeah, she is pretty amazing. So
I think the difference, I haven't been to see a therapist, but I think from what I've seen on movies and TV, that therapists listen more, whereas I felt like with the life coaching session, she's not giving you advice, she's pulling things out of you. You have everything inside of you, but I feel like it's much more of a conversation rather than you just sort of spilling your guts out and someone just listening, which sometimes you need. But I liked how practical it was. It really, I felt like I'm not going to need this for months. This is actually...
People get put off by the idea of therapy because they think, oh, you only need it if you're feeling bad, if you've got an issue about something. And actually anybody can go to therapy and it can help you even if you don't think you need help. there's different types of therapy. So like cognitive will like look back at, you like your childhood history or whatever. There's I don't know all the different names of them, but there's ones where it deals within the present. So if you've got something that you're dealing with right now, like that, it can help you through that. But I guess the idea of a life coach is to just bring out the best in you. So it's, some people think, oh, life coach, like, why do I need a life coach? Like, it's just somebody who's, positivity cheerleader or something like that. But it's really not. Like, it is pulling the best out of you, like things that you might know about yourself but don't appreciate, or, so I only had my first session today, but I already feel like, I think we're going to have a good next couple of sessions, and we're really going to kind of do some good work over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you will. And I wish everyone could see someone, and I guess that's what Safe Space is about.
It's like having that best friend that has no opinion on your life at all.
That's the key, because so often, we'll have our girlfriends, and I mean, honest, I couldn't live without my girlfriends. And my mum is also someone I talk to her about everything. But so often it's very difficult, and I'm guilty of this, to be impartial, because you feel emotional. You don't want to see your friend hurt. You don't want them to be in that situation. So going to someone who is completely impartial, non-biased, it's like a breath of fresh air.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's like, when you've been asking me those questions about like what advice would you give to somebody who's struggling with this, who's, who hasn't recognised their mental health or whatever. I actually don't like kind of giving my opinions on those types of things, purely for the fact that like not one shoe fits all. Everybody's totally different, and what might have helped me might be the absolute opposite for somebody else. So again, like seeing a clinical person like who understands like how the brain works, how we think, can help you sort of unravel that piece of string back to something that you never would have attributed why you do something the way you do it now. It's a really interesting way of understanding yourself.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and there's things that I've realised that I do that I'm now going to make a conscious effort not to do.
I already do after one session.
Like, I literally thought that I was this person who loves to give advice. I'm really good at giving advice. And what I've realised is, while that might be true in some areas, I tend to, instead of listen, just start telling the person what I would do if I was them, or what I've done in the past. And that's not helpful. No. That's not what the person needs. And I've realised that, I need to I do think I'm a good listener, but I need to, when someone is talking to you about something, that unless they say to you, Peter, can you tell me your opinion on this? Or Peter, can you tell me what you would do? Don't give it, because they're not asking for it. Just listen and ask them a question. How do you feel about that? Well, what would you do if this was, and that was one of the biggest things I took away. I was like, oh my God, I've got to stop just dishing out advice to everyone, because no one's asked for it.
I think that's why I struggle with social media now, because I feel like this whole idea of being an influencer, or people seeing what you're doing and thinking that they should live their life is the way you are, is really toxic. Obviously it's a commonly known thing that people compare themselves through social media, but
that's so dangerous.
I think I went through a phase of really being active on my personal account and trying to grow my personal account, to now feeling the absolute opposite. I had brands approaching me with products and stuff, and I'm kind of like, would I want somebody to sort of spoon feed me or make me think something about it in a certain way that I don't necessarily naturally feel that way about already? I don't know. So it's really made me kind of backtrack now and be like, I don't actually want to put a lot out on social media.
Well, some of my favourite people,
give my opinions on things.
Yeah, some of my favourite people at the moment on Instagram, Stacey Solomon.
Oh yeah,
is one of them.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah,
because I'm such a big Loose Woman fan, and I mean, I knew who she was before, but she's one of the presenters on there. Her Instagram is so real, so authentic. Again, I love it.
It's real and authentic, but it's also, that must put a strain on her, having to be so open all the time, because there's things that you want to share about your life and sometimes that you don't. And I think I even went through that journey as well, of being today I can't afford to put petrol in my car, to get to my next meeting, because things are really tough, and people did appreciate it. But then it then starts you thinking on another path about yourself, what you're telling people, and you know, that you don't need to share everything, basically.
I don't think you do, but I think that particular point you've just hit on, I think people should talk about more, because everyone thinks, oh, the Dubai life, you know, the pavements are paved with gold. And, you know, we've all been in that situation where you're literally like looking for dirhams down the side of the sofa going, right, how am I going to get to work? How am I going to get my lunch today? And no one really talks about that. So when you're in that situation, you just think, oh my God.
It's the worst part.
What am I doing wrong? Why am I not living this Dubai life? You know?
Like what did I do wrong? I think it was Christmas time, like I was walking through the mall and there was somebody walked past me and they had 3 Louis Vuitton paper, you know, shopping bags or whatever. And it was just around the time that I was starting to have these like head, you know, shaky feelings. And I was like, you know, that in itself was so triggering for me, because I could see this person and I knew, like, I didn't have money to get home, you know, like if it hadn't been for my boyfriend. So you do, it's like this comparison game that I think we all play, and I definitely think social media has a lot to answer for in terms of the lives that we're living now, and are we living them how we want to live them, or are we living them how we think other people should think that we should live them?
Yeah, and it's funny because whenever I see people with loads of shopping bags, like designer bags, and I just see rent, I'm like, that bag is literally 3 months rent, or whatever it might be. I don't think I'll ever lose that. I just always think like, wow.
I wasn't even thinking on that level. It was like, how many bananas can I buy? You know, like with that, like as small as that, you know, like that one coffee that person is drinking, like how many meals could I get out of that one coffee, you know, that 35 dirham coffee.
I've been speaking to my really close girlfriend, Ruby, about this recently, because money definitely doesn't buy happiness, but what it does buy is freedom. And it's one of those really strange things. And this is one of the things I spoke to Maria about, as well as my relationship with money, because we all have a relationship with money. Money is funny.
Yeah.
I always say that. And money is one of those things, when you don't have it, it literally is like, it's all you can think about, is all consuming. And then suddenly when you get it, then you don't think about it again. It's like, poof, done. It's like magic.
Yeah.
It is like a superpower. It's like, oh, I don't have to think about that anymore. But that in itself really makes me angry, because it's just like, oh, like it's so frustrating that these bits of paper that we just are so after. Important and chase after. And imagine if you took that away,
that pressure
what
away.
Decisions would you make? How would you live your life differently? And it's but it's then also like a fundamental thing that you need. So it's
actually, when I was poorly, my friend sent me a podcast, and it's a really interesting topic you just brought up, and it was about how in different cultures treat money in a different way.
I've learned that with Rami.
Yeah,
I've learned there's such a big difference.
And they went to different countries, and they asked people, like, you know, like, what would make you happier, like, to all these different people. And they went to a country in America, it was like, you know, like, we'll give you therapy or whatever. In another country, it was like, we'll give you a year off paying, like, working, and you still get your salary, like, and you'll feel happier. And then they went to some tiny little, like, middle of nowhere, I think, like Asia or somewhere like that, and they asked a guy, like, what would make you happier? And they ended up buying him a cow, because all he needed was companionship to feel, you know, good. And my friend, only 2 days ago, she's a teacher, and something in the UK they do with schools is they get the teachers to go out to the schools before these kids start school, so that both the parents and the kids can feel better about the first day at school. So she's tried to, like, bring this initiative now to Qatar, where she's working. And she went to the 3 homes, and it was like the 3 bears. She went to the first house, and it was a Qatari. And the Qatari had this ridiculous palatial kind of house that she'd gone to. And the woman was lovely. She was really nice, and they had the conversations. Then she went to the next house, and it was a Filipino family. And it was quite clear that there was 8 people in this house, all living out of a 1-bedroom. And she said the stark contrast between the two was the Filipinos were happy. They were, like, so in such a loving family environment. They all pitched in for each other. They were all kind of like, you know, who could give up their chair quick enough for the teacher that came into the house or whatever. Whereas the other family that she'd gone to, you know, you could tell that even though she was surrounded by all this beautiful stuff, wasn't as joyful as the other family was. And it was interesting hearing her talk about that, because I was then thinking, am I chasing after the wrong things? You know, like what is being around my family back at home? You know, I'm in this fabulous country. It's sunny outside. You know, like there's people walking past me with Louis Vuitton handbags, there's Ferraris and all of that. But is that making me happy versus the quality time that, you know, I get with my family maybe like 1-2 weeks out of the year? So it's made me kind of, it's cliche, but you're right, like money can't buy happiness. And I think as the generations go on, like all of our focus needs to almost be stripped back to like a more, you know, where we came from in terms of our origins and stuff as humans.
Yeah, and I think I hate when people just blame social media.
Yeah,
like, it's all social media.
It's like we all know it's a problem.
But and there's so much positivity on social media. But there is a thing where there's a few people I follow, sort of like reality stars, and I catch myself sometimes because I'm like, oh, I'd quite like that bag, or I'd quite like. There's sort of these tick things that I think all these they've got the Range Rover, they've got the nice watch, they've got the Cartier bangle,
the handbag,
a nice ring, the hair, they've had their lips done, they've got the tick. Like there's all these sort of tick things.
It's like a staple.
The more successful they get, they tick these things off, and you do find yourself going, oh well, I need that and I need that, and it's just rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, I'm all for if you want to get something done for your confidence and to make yourself feel better, great. Obviously, you got to work on what the actual root of that insecurity is. But yeah, you do find yourself just going,
I think it's that
I don't need all these things.
No, we've definitely. I remember like when I was a kid versus like looking at my nieces and nephews now as to what they kind of chase after versus what I chased after, you know, as a kid. And I'm sure our parents were totally different as well, but there is this culture now of like, what's next? There's no appreciation for the now or like what we have. And I think that is, again, like why maybe mental illness is so prevalent at the moment, because nothing satisfies this insatiable kind of like, we've all got this hole that we're trying to fill.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
You know, with like, you know, I've had nice handbags bought for me before. Do I treat those handbags any differently to the, you know, the ones that I got from sort of a high street shop? Probably not, like, because after I've had them for a little while, they just become
the novelty wears off.
And the novelty wears off. So I think going through this like period of financial, you know, like I don't want to say uncertainty, but you know, where I don't have as much wealth as what I have done in the past, has really made me realise what is important and, you know, what I need to spend my money on and what I actually don't, and what brings me joy still, even though it's might be small.
Oh my God, for me, just buying a new top on Namshi for 60 dirhams, I'm like,
in the sale.
It could be Gucci. I literally am so happy. I'm so chuffed, because it's like, I remember when I couldn't even fathom doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I went years without buying anything for myself.
Yeah.
You know, you run out of foundation, and you're like, oh my God.
Trying to stretch, I'll put a bit of water in the bottle and give it a
exactly. Like, so you literally like scraped it out. And so now I really do I still appreciate those things. It's like, oh, I can buy myself a new lipstick or a new top. I think like what I'm going through at the moment is I've realised that the only thing that can really make you truly happy is if you're doing what you feel like your purpose is, your calling. And Oprah always bangs on about this, and I love it. It's like your sole job on earth is to figure out why you're here and then get about the business of doing that.
Yeah.
And I like that resonates with me so much, because now I'm starting to do that. So happy. Yeah, and I'm not earning money from it. But it's literally like, yes, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's a process. I haven't figured it all out, but I think that is what people need to focus on.
A teacher asked me actually, like, if you were to talk to students, like, what would you say that they could do, like, to, you know, make themselves feel better? And I answered it exactly the same. It's like finding that purpose, and I think it's the purpose doesn't have to be, you know, of any financial reward or anything like that. It's not your job or anything like that, but it could be helping somebody else, or, you know, that's where you find your joy. Because when you do something for yourself, you know, like that makes you feel good, that doesn't cost anything, they're the best highs that you can get.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast. It's called The Life Coach School, and the lady is called, what's her name? It'll come to me. Anyway, and she was saying that, so you have your job, and your job is how you earn money and how you survive and how you eat, keep a roof over your head. And then some people have a career, so it's something that they've done for many years. They're very skilled in it. Then you have your hobby, which is something that you just do for fun and you enjoy. And then you have your vocation, and your vocation is something that you would do regardless if no one paid you, or not even that. It's just you would do your vocation. You do it for the pure joy and love of it. No one has to pay you for it. And I guess the dream is to turn your vocation into your career, but you have to make sure while you're doing your job, you're still doing your vocation and your hobbies, because your hobbies are like good for your soul. And so many times people have a business idea, but they're like, oh yeah, but I can't leave my job. Get it started on the side. Just start.
There's never a good time.
Just do it, and then eventually you can
time's going to pass
transition.
Anyway.
Time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've just got to do what you need to do whilst you're working on the and so many times people, I think that they've got to have all their ducks in a row, and I just think, just go for it. Just, if you've got to keep your job, keep your job. Just do it on the side, or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think that was really interesting. I never heard that breakdown of it before. Okay, so Helen, we're going to do a quick fire round now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Favourite quote?
Probably do it anyway, because the time will pass anyway. Just do it because the time will pass anyway.
I love that one. Best piece of life advice you've ever been given?
I think people come into your life for different reasons, but you don't have to hold on to them right the way through your life, so that, you know, there'll be people that you kind of carry through that are long-term friends, and there'll be people that come in for a purpose, and that doesn't mean you need to kind of carry them right the way through.
I've got a girlfriend that says a reason, a season, or forever. Is that the last one? A reason, a season, yeah, or it must be forever. But yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Favorite tool or app for helping organize your life?
It's not good for your mental health, but probably say my phone. Everything gets stored in there and on probably some weird hard drive, or kind of
the cloud.
Wherever
the cloud is. Yeah. Biggest pet peeve when it comes to business?
I think I feel like I'm quite like an upfront person, and I think like not everybody is as honest sometimes, and that can cause more obstacles like down the line, like by not, sometimes people don't want to hurt your feelings by being honest, when actually like that would have saved you a whole load of time, like, and energy. So yeah, I'd probably say like honesty, like when people aren't honest.
Honesty is the best policy.
Exactly.
Most important life lesson so far?
Appreciating your parents when you're younger, because I think like now my parents are getting older and I don't get to see them as much anymore because I live here. Like, you know, it does at the back of my mind think like, you know, when's the last time we're all going to get that big family holiday together, or, you know, whatever. And you look back and you've got such fond memories, but there'll be times when you like maybe had a row about something stupid that kind of ruined that, made for a good story as you get older. But yeah, I wish I'd appreciated the time I had at home probably a bit more when I was younger.
Yeah, and go home as well.
Go home more.
Yeah, I had a moment at Christmas. We were all together, and it was my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary, and we spent this lovely weekend together, and all the family were there, and then we had to leave.
Yeah.
And like everyone just was crying.
Yeah.
And my family aren't like a family of criers.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just felt like, oh my God, like this is awful. It was the first time I really felt like I just wish we had more time. Like it's not enough time. And for us, 6 months goes like that. But for my grandparents, it's a long time. They have to wait, you know, to see us. Definitely. And oh my God, yeah, it can make me cry. It's one of the hardest things about living away.
I know. I think like one of the most positive things about me going home for such a long time when I was poorly was that I got to sort of spend so much time with my nieces and nephews. Otherwise I wouldn't have got that opportunity to do so. So yeah, I'd say family.
If you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Probably stop trying to be like everybody else. I wish I'd realised that a long time ago. I think as I get older, I realise that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that's going to make you happy. You know, going back to the whole sort of like social media thing again, you know, like you can see, I think it was you that said to me earlier, you know, you see all these holidays and places that people go, and the next thing is you think that you're supposed to be going to Bali or Sri Lanka because everybody else is. And I think like I lived my life very much like that when I was younger. Now I try and do things that I want to do instead of copying what everybody else is doing.
And also, I guess, learning to be really happy with who you are and knowing what you have to offer. And yeah, I'm happy being me. I wouldn't swap it for anyone else.
Yeah.
Which is something I think we all struggle with, because everyone just looks like it's easier for them and they're better off. Again, don't want to blame social media, but it has a big role to play. Okay, Helen, are you ready for your final question?
Yes.
What do you know for sure?
I think if you put one foot in front of the other, you'll definitely move forward. So I think it's just about knowing that, like, you've just got to keep going. And if you keep putting that, just even if they're baby steps, and you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you'll progress and you'll move forward. So
I love that. Thank you. Helen, thank you so much for joining me today and being so honest and open. At the end of the show, I will mention all your Instagram handles and hashtags and where people can find all your businesses, from HeartKnoxx to Mental Health is Trending. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peta.
If you'd like to check out the amazing work Helen does and continue to follow her story, check out her personal Instagram account @thecomebackKidXX, and you can also find her mental health initiative @Mental Health is Trending on there too. For Helen's rebel fashion brand with a cause, just follow @HeartKnoxx. That's Knox spelled KNOXX with 2 X's. And finally, check out her brand new initiative, Safe Space, by following @SafeSpaceDXB. And just before I leave you today, if you'd like to find out who my guests will be on the next episode of Life School, follow us on Instagram @LifeSchoolME, where you can keep up to date with all our news and find information on all our amazing guests. Thank you for listening to Life School, conversations to inspire action.